let's get started. So first of all, we're going to work out the equation of the line for AB. So I'm going to write line AB. So we have y equals mx plus c. Now the gradient is just going to be the change in y over the change in x. Okay. We do any GCSE further maths videos? Not currently. It's not on the plan as such. But maybe if I get some time, for sure. Or if you have any questions, I don't mind answering them. So that'd be 1 minus 5, because the y coordinate of b is 1, y coordinate of a is 5, over 1 minus minus 2. Hello Zam, how are you? 1 minus 5 is negative 4. 1 minus minus 2 is going to be 3. So our equation at the moment is y is equal to negative 4 over 3 x plus c. Now we need to actually work out what plus c is, and we're just going to do that by subbing in one of the coordinates. I'm going to pick coordinate b because I think that might be the easiest one. So when x is equal to 1, y is also equal to 1. So we have 1 is equal to negative 4 over 3 times 1 plus c. Oh, Hannah, I really appreciate you saying that. That's very sweet. Again, at least until exams are finished anyway, right? But yeah, this should be fine. Whoops, I don't know what I'm doing there. Plus c. So to work out c. Hey, no, it's going pretty well, thanks. How's it going for you? So that's 1 plus 4 over 3. Again, I'm going to assume it's non-calculator. So if you wanted to change this into, if you wanted to add these, you need to make the denominators the same. So I'll times the top and bottom by 3. So that equals 3 over 3 plus 4 over 3, which is 7 over 3. I've been finding your videos super helpful, thank you. Well, thank you very much, I appreciate it. I'm glad they're helpful. That's the whole point of them, right? Do I have a video specifically on surds? Honestly, I'm not sure if I have one specifically on surds. I think I have one on rationalizing the denominator. Actually, let me double check that. So this is a list of all the videos I've done before. Doesn't look like it, although I'll add it to the list. So I can do a video on that. Cool. The next two are going to be completing the square and circle theorems. Anyways, so my equation is now y is equal to negative 4 over 3x plus 7 over 3, right? So now we need to do this part here, where it says, does point C lie on the straight line? So, if it does lie on the straight line, then when I sub in x is 19, I should get negative 23 out. If it does. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. So x is equal to 19. We get y is equal to minus 4 over 3 times 19 plus 7 over 3. Hey Ma, how are you? I've put in some of your questions as well. I'm actually not sure if it was this question or one of the other ones, but your question's in here as well. So negative 4 over 3 times 19. Just do 4 times 19, which is 76. So minus 76 over 3 plus 7 over 3. So that would be minus 69 over 3, which is minus 23. So it does lie. So C lies on the line. Okay. Let me zoom out for a little bit and then. Okay. Understood this question quite well, so thank you. But how do you find the equation of a curve? So in normal GCSE maths, you won't be asked to find an equation of a curve. Okay? If you're doing IGCSE or you're doing further maths, then you will, and I'll go through that maybe another time or at the end of this lesson, because that might make a bit more sense. Okay? But for normal GCSE, you never need to find the equation of a curve. Okay. So hopefully that all makes sense. Leave it up there for a few more seconds. If there are any questions, please let me know. Okay. The next one. I haven't left myself much space for this. Let's zoom in a bit. So it says the diagram shows a square ABCD, so this big thing here. And it says N is the midpoint of AB, N is the midpoint of AD. And it says the area of the shaded triangle is 18 centimeters squared. So work out the area of this middle triangle here. Okay. So that's some interesting information. So key parts here are that it's a square, which means all of these sides, so DC, CB, AB, etc., they're all going to be the same. So I'm going to label them X. Okay. So what that means is that A to N is going to be a half of X, because don't forget it says it's the midpoint, which means it's midway across, which means it's half the length. And AM is also going to be a half X. Okay. So the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to use the information they've given me. So they've given me that the shaded triangle is 18 square centimeters, right? So I must need to use that at some point. So I can now write an equation for that shaded triangle, right? So the area of AMN is a half the base, which is a half X, times the height, which is a half X. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. And that equals 18. So do you have any tips on vectors? I keep getting them all wrong. You might be happy to know that the next video that comes out, which is tomorrow, will be a vectors video where I go through everything from grade 5 to grade 9 of vectors. But my tips for that is A, practice, obviously, but B, kind of really try and understand what's happening. So the point of that video, I'm hoping it achieves this, is that I explain exactly why you do certain steps, which will help you kind of use them in the future. There's actually only a few things you need to know for vectors. But the thing is, it's knowing them that's the problem, right? It's very tricky. So a half times a half times a half, well, that's a half times a half is a quarter, times a half again is 1 over 8. And that's x squared equals 18. And that gives us... Interesting. Okay. So times both sides by 8. Sorry, I just noticed something. Is 18 times 8. I can't do that in my head. So if that disappoints you, 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times 1 is 8. Plus the another 8 would be 16. So 164. Sorry, wait, would that be 144? Yeah, perfect. Wait, no, I've made a mistake. Yeah, it's 144, yeah. I promise I can do normal maths. I promise I can do it. That's what to say. I knew something was wrong, I just couldn't pinpoint it exactly. So yeah, and when you square root it, that just gives me 12 centimeters. Oh, boys. Tuesdays, man. What can I say? So x is 12 centimeters, so the sides of this square are all 12 centimeters, okay? Now, I can actually clear this quickly, just to make my life a little bit easier. Okay? And I know that each side is going to be 12 centimeters, okay? So they want me to work out the area of this little triangle, and it's not half base times height, because it's not a right angled triangle, okay? So what we need to do is instead work out the area of this big square, and then we're going to subtract the area of this triangle, subtract the area of this triangle, and subtract the area of this triangle, okay? Hello Shogs, how are you? Now, one thing that you should know is that the length of this is 6 and 12. Those two white triangles, the white right angle triangles, are actually the same triangle, okay? So I don't need to actually work them out per se. So, area of the square, I don't have any space. Let's do it up here. The area of the square is 12 times 12, which is 144. Cool. We have this area here. So I'm going to work out the area of these triangles here. So it's NDC. So the area of, let's call it, I'm just going to say area of triangles, is going to be 2, because there's 2 of them, times a half, times the base, which is 6, times the height, which is 12. Okay? So just to make that a bit more clear, this here is just the area of one triangle, right? A half times 6 times 12. But there's 2 of them, so I've timesed it by 2. So hopefully you can see that would be 72. Because 6 times 12 is 72. Half of that is 36. Times it by 2 again is 72. What paper is usually the hardest? So normally, and this is very brief, but normally paper 2 is the hardest. Normally. But if you find it different, that's completely fine as well. So yeah, Mars says 3, again, it's kind of personal preference, right? It depends on what pops up. Generally speaking, calculator is harder than non-calculator though. So 2 and 3 is harder than 1, generally speaking, okay? So it's not like a hard rule or anything. It could be different this year. But yeah, in general, okay? So now, the area that I want, so I'm going to call it answer, is the area of the square, 144, minus the area of this grey part here, which is 18, minus 72, which is going to be 72 minus 18, which is going to be, so minus 8 would give me, 64 minus 10 would give me 54 centimeters squared. Okay. It's only a 4-mark question. It's a bit savage, but whatever. Well, the grade boundaries, we don't know. So the grade boundaries always come out after they've marked papers because they do it based on a curve. So they'll, for example, take the top 10% of the scores and that would be a grade 9 and then so on down the line. So no one knows the grade boundaries until after the exams, the exams have been marked. Okay, any questions about that? If not, we can go straight on to the next one. And yeah, for anyone that's just joined, feel free to send in a question. I'll type my email address out one more time. And we'll probably get time to do it today because we're actually getting through this quite quickly. Yeah, it should be similar to 2019 or 18, something like that. In theory, but anyways. So the diagram shows some information about junctions A, B, and C on a motorway. Raja drove from A to B at an average speed of 50 miles an hour. The distance from A to B is 10 miles. Raja took 30 minutes to go from A to C, so that's the total distance, length. And he drove from A to C at an average speed of 62 miles an hour. So we need to work out the average speed as he drove from B to C. Okay? So this is a lot of information. It looks a bit confusing. However, if we look at this kind of a bit more carefully, if we want to work out the average speed from B to C, what do we need? We need two things. We need the distance from B to C, and we need the time taken to go from B to C. Right, those are the two things we need. Okay? So let's start trying to work that out. Well, I can't work out the distance B to C just yet, but what I can do is work out the total question. I read Zam's message when I was speaking. The total distance AC minus the distance AB. And that total distance AC is just going to be the speed times the time. Okay? So in total it's 31 miles. Okay? Yeah, Zam, don't worry, I'll do the question after this. There's a few more questions we need to go through that were submitted before. Out of topic question, do you know the area of the triangle? How do you know when to use... Okay, Abby, that's a good question. So, half AB sine C works for isosceles and right-angled triangles only. For every other type of triangle, you have to use half AB sine C. So, right-angle isosceles, completely fine to use half AB sine C. For... well, technically, because isosceles can be cut into two right-angled triangles, that's why isosceles you can. For any other triangle, you need to use half AB sine C. So the total distance from A to C is 31 miles. And if the distance A to B is 10 miles, that means the distance from B to C is 21 miles. So that gives me the distance. Now I just need the time. Okay, well, I know the total time is 30 minutes. So what if I worked out how long it took him to drive from A to B and just subtract it? Hey, Nithika, how are you? So from A to B, ain't missing 2 in a row, yeah. So, we have the speed, which is 50 miles an hour, and we have the distance. Now, if you remember kind of your formula triangle, if you use a formula triangle, or if you know the formula just like algebraically, that's fine. To work out time, you do distance over speed. Yeah, I've not been too bad. So the time is just equal to distance, which is 10, over 50. So in other words, it's 0.2 hours. Okay? Which in other words, a fifth of an hour is just going to be a fifth of 60, which is 12 minutes. Right? Okay? I hope that makes sense. Cool. So now I know that from A to B was 12 minutes, right? So from B, wait a minute. Yeah, okay. So from B to C will be 30 minus 12 minutes, which is 18 minutes. So now I have the distance and time, I can work out the speed. So when you multiply time, you can multiply by converting the hours to minutes, or... Yeah, so you have to convert the hours to minutes. Oh, wait. Okay, so Mar, with what you're saying, do you mean for like this part over here, you want to change it into like a fraction or into hours? So if you look at the units here, it's miles per hour, which means the time has to be in hours and the distance has to be in miles. That's why I've changed it to kind of hours and stuff. Yeah, perfect if you want to. Hello, Lelo, how are you? So, I now have the distance and time. So the speed for B to C is distance over time, which is 21 miles over 18 minutes. Now this is where it's going to get a bit funky, okay? Because this is in minutes, not hours. So to change it into hours, I need to do 18 over 60. So this is where things are going to get a bit funky, okay? We're basically doing 21 divided by 18 over 60. And I'm going to assume that this was a non-calculator question because, I mean, I just don't know otherwise for now. Hello, how are you? So, for this, I would recommend you can do kind of cross cancellation if you want. Or just do 21 times 60. Actually, was this a... Would we be okay doing this? Like, can I use a calculator and just cheat? I don't think it's a whole number. I'm pretty sure it's not a whole number. But what I was going to say is you can cancel this down, so you can divide this one. Like, yeah. So you can make that 7 and make that 6. Oh, never mind, it is a whole number. I'm an idiot, never mind. Yeah. So what I've done here is I've divided this by 3 and this by 3, because I'm basically cross-cancelling. So now I have 7 times 60 over 6, which is 7 times 10, which is 70 miles per hour. Okay? So you know the question I sent? You can ignore it because I understand it now. I'm going to send another. Yeah, that's totally fine. Okay. So I'll delete the one you literally... Actually, wait. I mean, it hasn't come through yet anyway. 70 miles an hour is fine. That's the speed limit. How'd you convert from kilometers per hour to meters per second? I'll show you in 1 second. So the way I'm going to check if my answer is correct, right? If you look, over the total distance, the average speed was 62. But here it is only 50, which means my average speed for B to C should be bigger, right? So it balances out. So kilometers per hour to meters per second. Let me do that for you quickly. Let's say if we had 1 kilometer per hour, right? If you look at it, the kilometers on top and the hours on the bottom, yeah? And you want to make that into meters over seconds. So first of all, how do I go from kilometers to meters? You times by 1,000, yeah? How do you go from hours to second? You times by 60 to get minutes, and you times by 60 again to get seconds. So what you're doing is you're timesing by 1,000 and you're dividing by 60 times 60, because don't forget the hours on the bottom. So the answer for 1 kilometer an hour to meters per second is 1 times 1,000 over 60 times 60, which is actually less than 1. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. I don't get the last part from speed B. Okay, so I'm assuming this part here, right? So to get the speed from B to C, I'm doing the distance over the time. Okay? The distance is 21 miles, because that's what we worked out, and the time is 18 minutes. But we want the speed in miles per hour. So what I've had to do is change 18 minutes into hours by just doing 18 over 60. Okay? I hope that makes a little bit more sense. So we'll leave it up there for a bit more. You're very welcome, Zan. I hope that makes sense. Cool. Okay, I think that's all okay for everyone else then. Okay. So the area of a parallelogram is 15 centimeters squared, correct to the nearest integer. The shortest side of the parallelogram is 4.5 centimeters to the nearest two significant figures. The longest side is 7.1 centimeters to 2 significant figures. Find the largest possible size of the 2 acute angles in the parallelogram. Give your answer correct to 3 decimal places. Yeah, yes, I know. It was shocking over Easter. It went from 200 to about 800, which was kind of shocking. But yeah, so how would I approach this question? Well, this information's hard for me to visualize in my head, so I'm going to draw it out. So I'm going to draw out a parallelogram. Please don't bully me. It's not going to look the best, right? Yeah, that's a parallelogram, right? Roughly, a little bit. So it's now saying the short side is 4.5. So I'm just going to write 4.5 for now, okay? And the long side is 7.1. Okay. And they've also given me the area. Now, it's saying here, find the largest possible size of the 2 acute angles. So if I look at my drawing, the acute angles are here and here. Now, here's the really important thing, is that the opposite angles are always equal in a parallelogram. So both of these angles are actually identical. So I can ignore one of the angles. I only need to work out one, okay? So just as a reminder, opposite angles in a parallelogram are always equal to each other, okay? So you don't need to worry about it. Now, this part here is interesting. The area of a parallelogram is 15 centimeters squared. To work out the area of a parallelogram, what you do is you do the base and you times it by the height, but it's not the slanted length, right? This is indeed bounds, Mar. This is probably one of the most tricky bounds questions I've seen so far. So I'm not exactly sure where this came from either. It just got submitted. I don't know if it's like a textbook or something. But yeah. But it's not the slanted length, it's the height. So that doesn't really help me, right? Difference between perpendicular and parallel. So parallel means that the two lines never meet, right? So they just move like train tracks. Perpendicular means they meet at right angles to each other. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut this in half. Caitlin, they would not be acute as well, because don't forget the angles in a parallelogram need to add up to 360. So all 4 of them can't be acute because they'd have to be less than 90. And 4 times 90 is 360. But yeah, the opposite angles are, one pair of them is obtuse, the other pair is acute. So if I cut this in half, I can actually work out the angle now, right? Because I'm going to use the formula half AB sine C. Okay? So if I divide this area in 2, yeah, that's 7.5. Correct to the nearest integer, right? You sent it on Discord. Okay. Let me load up the Discord quickly. I'll drag it out of the way in 1 second as soon as it loads. There we are. Okay. I will open it in a second. Okay. So far, is anyone uncomfortable? Yes. Yeah, so HS, my video coming out tomorrow, hopefully if I get the thumbnail done, is going to be on a bunch of vector questions. All the way from grade 5 to grade 9. So yeah. So, hopefully so far this is okay. Hope. Noah. Anyways. And what am I saying? Okay, cool. Now I can work out this angle because that angle is just going to be sine C. Now, here's the part where it gets a bit interesting, okay? If I rearrange this formula for the angle, I get sine C is equal to 2 times the area over AB. Okay. I think I missed something. Anyways, so far is that okay? Now, I need to find the largest size of the angles. Now, with sine, you want this thing to be as small as humanly possible, okay? Okay, I'm not too sure. Okay, so, was it the rearranging, or was it just like the whole thing so far? It is a bounds question, so we're going to be changing this in a second. I haven't rounded yet, you're completely correct. I'm doing that now. At the end, all of it, okay. Can't you divide by a half times 6? So with cos you need it to be as... so with sine and cos you need it to be as small as possible. Okay? So... yeah. So, we need to make this as small as possible, okay? So, to go through this one more time, they gave me a parallelogram, so I drew out the parallelogram, right? And they're telling me that... where did I get 7.5 from? So, good. I've cut this parallelogram in half, right? Which means it will have half of the area. Now, I want to keep in mind, I haven't done bounds on these yet, okay? So, what I can do is I can actually get rid of these numbers for now, just to make it maybe a bit more clear. Okay? So ignore that for now. So I've drawn the parallelogram out. Now the short side, this side here, is 4.5 to 2 significant figures. The long side 7.1. And this part of the area will be 7.5, right? Or whatever. What about me finding upper or lower? Is this grade 9 question? This is a grade 9 question, okay? And it is of course calculator because it has sine in it. I can't do it otherwise. And what they're trying to do is find the largest size of these angles. And to do that, you need to make the fraction as small as possible. Now, if you look at the fraction, I have 2 times area over A times B. So, if I look at this, I want the area to be as small as possible, and I want the lengths to be as big as possible. Is that okay? I hope that makes sense. So, now we can do our bounds. Because now we know the equation we're using, now we can do bounds, okay? Cool. So we want the area to be as small as possible. We want the lower bound of 15 centimeters, which is going to be 14.5 centimeters. But if you remember, I've cut this shape in half. So I need to divide it by 2, okay? So we've taken the lower bound of 14.5, but that's of the whole shape. I slice it in half, so I half the number 2, which would give me 7.25 centimeters. That's my area, okay? Hope that's okay. Now, for the shortest side, the lower bound of 4.5 is just going to be we want the upper bound, sorry. Why am I halving the shape? Good question, Ma. The reason why I'm halving it is because I need to find an equation that relates an angle to an area. And the only one that I can think of is going to be the half AB sine C formula for a triangle. Okay? Because we need to work out an angle. Cool. Also, with the kind of like... So I've had to like half it to make it a triangle instead. Because the area of the whole parallelogram is a bit useless. Because it would only give me vertical height. Cool. So we want the upper bound of 4.5. Which is 4.55. And the upper bound of 7.1. Which is 7.15. You can, Zam. That's complete. That's the exact same thing. Exactly, Caitlin, yeah. Yeah, for this case, yeah. So then for C, we're just going to do the sine inverse of 2 times the area, which is 7.25, over A times B, which is 4.55, times 7.15. That does say a 1, believe me. And yet we can use a calculator because, of course, it's sine of weird numbers. Okay. So inverse sine, we have 2 times 7.25. And then we have 4.55. I saw a question like, do you only go live on Tuesdays? At the moment, but your maths exams are actually on a Thursday, I think it was. It's like Thursday or something. So I might do a stream before then. As in the day before then. But I'll announce it before, obviously, because don't expect you. So 26.5 actually says to 3 decimal places. So 26.469 that would be. It's on Friday? Yeah. So I might do a live stream on that Thursday then. Just to kind of do like last minute preparation for it. And do the same for paper 2 and 3 as well. Okay. That was a fun question. That's correct, Caitlin. That's perfect. So I times both sides by 2, divide both sides by AB. So I normally do the live until 7, but I end up doing it until later than 7 most of the time because I can't control myself. So yeah, normally it's an hour, but let's face it, I'm probably going to go longer than that, like usual. You're welcome, Sanch. It was a good question. Thank you for sending it in. But why would you do lower bound if 15? I'm sorry for asking if you mentioned this before, but why would you do the lower bound if 15? Oh, lower bound. Okay. So, we want the top number to be as small as humanly possible. So basically, the way sine works is to get the biggest angle, you want to make the fraction as small as possible. To make the fraction as small as possible, you take the upper bound of the denominator and the lower bound of the numerator. So, S, I'll do your question after these next few because people submitted these last week and I didn't get around to them. And then I have a few that I emailed and then we'll get to them. Question. Good. It wasn't too bad. Yes, Abby, by the way, you can go up 2 grades in 2 weeks. You're going to improve a lot in these next kind of 2 weeks. Okay, I think this is... Okay. You're very welcome. I hope that was helpful. So, yeah, so this was sent in, so ignore the scribbling on here. That's not mine. And let's have a look-see. So the diagram shows a prism. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Okay, forget that. All right, so it shows a prism. Calculate the angle DEG, which is... Well, it looks like someone's already written the answer on this, so it's this part here. Okay. So, to make my life a bit easier, I'm actually going to draw out the triangle that we're trying to... Sorry, the triangle that involves that angle. So... And would that be right angle? That would be a right angle, yeah? Okay. Yes, we did, HS. If you want me to go up, I can. So, you might be wondering how I know it's a right angle triangle. And I'm going to explain that in 2 seconds. How long is this lesson going on for? I should stop at 7, but it normally lasts a bit longer than that because, again, I sometimes get a bit too involved in the work. So yeah. The reason why I know that is if you look at the line GH and EH, they're perpendicular to each other, right? They're perpendicular. Which means it's going to be, it's really hard to describe. The line goes from D to G, which is like diagonal, and EG is like this as well. So if you look, that's still like a right angle, if you can see. Yeah. The other way to look at it, which might be a bit easier, is because they're on the same face, right? If they're on the same face, they're going to be perpendicular to each other. I hope that makes sense. But the angle we're looking for is this one up here. Okay? So, let's try and work some stuff out. Are you going to monetize? So, the way it works, is you have to get 1,000 subscribers, but also 4,000 watch hours. And I only have like 1,800 watch hours at the moment, so not yet. Halfway, I guess. But if you notice, there's already ads on my videos, but I don't get money, which is annoying. But anyways, so if you have a look at this, the width of this part here, so from G to D, GD, is just going to be DC, right? So I'm just going to write that out. GD is equal to DC. 4,000 watch hours. Yeah, that's what I said. Did I say 40,000? I meant 4,000. So yeah. So this length here, DC, is the same as my length DG here, okay? So can I work that out? Well, if I have a look, that is the same as that length, right? So this height is 4 centimeters. This height is 3 centimeters. So the length is going to be square root 5 squared minus 3 squared. Does that make sense? How do you work out the length of the line when you're given coordinates? You find the difference in the x and y coordinates, square it and add it together, and then square root it. So it's basically Pythagoras. So let's say you had two coordinates 1, 2 and 3, 4. You're just doing this. So difference in, it doesn't actually matter which way around you do it. Okay. So yeah, it would just be 4. Perfect, Nithika. So this length here is 4 centimeters. It's, oh, not D. Ah, my bad. I wrote the wrong way around. My bad. That's not GD, that is actually, so that's not EG, it's the, yeah, GD isn't that, that's my bad. I wrote the wrong way around. 4 would be the other side. So DE is the long side here, GD would be the same as that. Yeah, that's my bad. I wrote that slightly a bit wonky, I think. So what I'm doing here is, if I look at the triangle, right, the width of that base of the triangle is GH, so theta, GH, which is the same as this. So I'm not done quite yet. If I can get rid of this, if I may, right? The next thing I want to work out, ideally, is going to be the kind of the diagonal side, right? Which is EG. Yeah. I'll resend my email. So yeah, EG is going to be the same as the diagonal on this front face here, right? They'll both be the same. Okay? So I'll write that out. EG equals AC. Now, I can work that out because, again, it's just Pythagoras. It's going to be equal to square root 4 squared plus 7 squared. And this one is going to be 49 plus 16 square root 65, which I can't simplify just yet. Okay, and that is going to be EG over here, okay? Perfect. And Yeah, so for that 4 centimeters, you're right. I did make a slight kind of error on that. DG is not this part. We can work it out though, because DG, again, we can use Pythagoras with 4 and 11. Okay? 4 and 11. Does that make sense? So DG is just going to equal square root, whoops, 4 squared plus 11 squared. 16 plus 120. Actually, no, why am I doing it in my head? Let's just use a calculator. So yeah, I needed that 4 because I'm going to use it to work out DG is what I meant to say. I just kind of fumbled my words a bit, which is square root 137. And now we can work out what theta is, right? It's just opposite over adjacent, so it's going to be tan. Okay, so we have opposite, we have adjacent. So if we use SOHCAHTOA, we're using TOA. So tan theta equals opposite, so root 137 over square root 65. So then theta is equal to, do it on our calculator, inverse tan root 137 over square root 65, I think it was. There we are. Sorry, over square root 65. To 3SF is 55.4 degrees. So yeah. I hope that makes sense. Any questions about that? No worries, Sanch, it's fine. What grade question? I think 3D trig is grade 7. Let me double check 1 sec. Yeah, it's grade 7. I was right. Yeah, perfect. Okay, cool. Okay, splendid. If we can move on then, that's pretty good. This next one I did write down was paper 3 because the person in the email, and I'm sorry I forgot your name, I copied this over last night and I don't remember, did tell me it's paper 3 so I can use a calculator. Okay, so the diagram shows a solid metal cylinder and it has these measurements. It's melted down and used to make 270 spheres. So we need to find a expression for h in terms of x. Okay. Oh, are you sure? Okay. Would anyone want me to do this, or is this okay? Can you do it? Can you do it? Okay. Let's quickly go through it. It's honestly a relatively short question, okay? So, all you have to do is, yeah, no worries, cool. We'll do the volume of a cylinder, and we're going to equate it to 270 times the volume of a sphere. I know, right? So the volume of a cylinder is just the area of the bottom face, which is just going to be a circle, so pi r squared, times by its height, h. So all I'm doing is I'm doing pi. The radius is 3x, so 3x squared times h is equal to 270 times 4 over 3 pi, and the radius is a half x. Oops. A half x cubed. Okay. Cool. And now we're trying to find an expression for h in terms of x. So if I expand this, I get 9x squared. So we have 9x squared pi h equals, I'm going to do 270 times 4 over 3. So that would be 90 times 4, which is 360. A half cubed is going to be 1 over 8 because 2 cubed is 8. X cubed, okay? And now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cancel a pi from both sides because there's a pi in all of the terms, okay? The next thing I can do is I can cancel out x squared from both sides. Right? So divide both sides by pi, divide both sides by x squared. So now I have 9h equals 360 over 8. So I don't think that's a... So yeah, it is paper 3, so we're just going to quickly use a calculator. So that equals 45x. So since it wants h in terms of x, we're going to divide both sides by 9. And we get h is equal to 5x. So nice and neat. Okay. So that was fun. If any of that doesn't make sense, then do let me know. You made that so easy. I mean, it is a fairly quick question. So 270 is the number of spheres I made. The reason why I did 360 times 1 over 8 is because I had a half cubed. Yeah, Zoe, I completely agree. It looks way harder than it's supposed to, really. It's not that difficult, it's just they like to confuse you with lots of big words. What grade? Oh, that's a really good question. Oh yeah, 270 then, Mar. Yeah, that's correct. Probably 6 or 7, maybe? Hannah? 6 or 7? Kiara, any tips for last minute revision? I always struggle on paper 1, and I've done a lot of past papers already. If you've done a lot of kind of past papers already, my best piece of advice is to, when you go through them, try and spot exactly where you're making mistakes. So is it silly mistakes, right? Like, are you just doing something stupid? If so, you need to kind of make your exam technique better in the sense that you need to kind of take it nice and slow. If it's, for example, not knowing what the question's asking you, what I would recommend, and I'm trying to make videos based on this, kind of, developing exam technique in the sense that with this question, for example, I broke down exactly what they gave me and I wrote maths equations for it, right? So in this case, I knew that I needed volume here, so I just wrote out volume. And then 270, so 270 pieces of volume and so on. Okay? But, yeah. Yeah, getting better at just like the normal kind of mental maths or like, not mental maths, but like non-calculator maths would be quite good as well, in terms of like timesing, dividing, etc. I hope that helps, at least somewhat. It might be good to get either a teacher or one of your friends to mark one of your papers and give it back to you and let them give you feedback. That can also help. Getting a second pair of eyes is always useful. And, okay. Ooh, okay. I remember this question because it was emailed in and it caught me a bit off guard. It's a very, very interesting question. Okay? Very interesting. I like this question a lot. I did just read through it. So basically, we have 3 coordinates. So we have A, which is -2 and 1, B, which is 6 and 5, and C, which is 4 and K. They are the vertices of a right angle triangle ABC. And angle ABC is a right angle. We need to find an equation of the line that passes through A and C. Give your answer in the form AY plus BX equals C. So, really good question. Okay? So, what I recommended doing, and what this person has done to their credit, is they've drawn out a right angle triangle, which is exactly what I'd recommend you do. And the next thing it says is that ABC is the right angle. So I'm going to put A, B, and C because it tells me this is the right angle, right? And now I'm going to write out the coordinates, okay? So A is -2 and 1. B is 6 and 5. And C is 4K. So I would like to point out that some of you might be looking at this and say, well, these coordinates make no sense now, right? Because if A and B are on a straight line, then they should have the same X coordinate. And if B and C are on the same line, then 5 should just be K. But in the in this situation, they've rotated the right angle triangle, but it doesn't matter in terms of the maths, right? Like if I was drawing it, I'd have to slant it a bit. But in terms of maths, it doesn't matter. I can leave it like this, okay? Now, the reason why this is really, really, really important is it says find the equation of the line that passes through A and C. So if I want to find that out, right, that's y equals mx plus c. I need to work out the gradient, right? The problem is I don't know what k is. So I'm actually a bit stuck now. So all you need to do is use the fact that AB and BC are perpendicular. What does that mean? It means their gradients should be the negative reciprocal of each other, okay? So in other words, it should mean that the gradient of AB is equal to minus 1 over the gradient of BC. Okay? Yeah. Does that make sense? So because they're perpendicular, their gradients are the negative reciprocal of each other. And the way you write that is like this. Because minus 1 over it, right? So, hope that, okay, good. Now, yeah, I know, right? It's funny. So, the gradient of AB, I can work that out nice and easily. It's the difference in the y coordinates over the difference in the x coordinates. So it's going to be 5 minus 1 over 6 minus minus 2. Okay? And on the right-hand side, that's going to be, well, what I want to do actually, instead of doing this, right, is I'm going to move this over slightly. I'm going to write this out in a slightly different way because I think it might make a bit more sense. So MAB equals this. MBC is, again, the difference in the y coordinates over the difference in the x coordinates. So it's k minus 5 over 4 minus 6. So this is just equal to 4 over 4. Oh my god, I just made that mistake. 4 over 8. Jesus Christ. 1 over 2. I hope none of you saw that. K minus 5 over minus 2. So, remember that the gradient here, 1/2, should be equal to the negative reciprocal of this. Okay? So, in other words, it should be equal to, so a half should be equal to, flip it and change the sign. So negative minus 2 over k minus 5. And exactly. So now we can actually do some maths. I'm going to cancel out the minuses and the minus here because it's minus minus, right? Times both sides by k minus 5. I get a half k minus 5 equals 2. Times both sides by 2. We get k minus 5 equals 4. So k is just equal to 9. And now we have everything we need to work out the equation of a straight line. Why did I flip it? Because when you have perpendicular lines, you just take the negative reciprocal of the gradient. So you flip it and make it negative. If you're unsure still, if you look at this, if I sub it into this, right, we have 1 over k minus 5 over minus 2. So that's the same as doing minus 1 divided by k minus 5 over minus 2. So that's the same, use keep flip change, minus 1 times minus 2 over k minus 5. And if you look, that is actually the same as this piece, this piece over here. So I hope that makes a bit of sense. So we find y first? Yeah. So the first step, which one? As in the first step when I made it equal, or the very first step with the gradients, like finding the gradients? Rupal, that is one way you can do it. But in this case, it's fine. How did you recognise that it had something to do with the lines being perpendicular? Well, that's a very good question. So when I drew this out, it told me it's a right-angled triangle. And it told me the right angle's right here, yeah? So that hinted to me that it's going to be important, right? Because they never give you information you don't need. Every piece of information is useful, okay? I'm not sure how many marks it was, Abby, but yeah. So that's how I knew that we were going to use this. Then when I tried doing the question where it's just find the equation of AC, I got stuck because I couldn't find the gradient here. So then the only thing I can do is use the fact that it's perpendicular. So the question kind of forced me to do it. Okay. So yeah, Hannah, MAB and MBC, cool. So to work out the gradient of any line, right, all you do is you do the difference in the y coordinates over the difference in the x coordinates. So can you see the y coordinate for this is 5 and 1. So we do 5, take away 1. Then with the x coordinates, that's 6 and minus 2. So you do 6 minus minus 2. Yeah? And then we did the same thing with BC. The y coordinate is k and 5. Cool, okay. You also done the gradient of BC, because it's a negative reciprocal, and find the equation of BC, so point x. Yes, Sanch, you can. So anyways, now we can work out MAC, which again is the difference in y over the difference in x. So that's going to be now 9 minus 1 over 4 minus minus 2. So that is 8 over 6, which is 4 over 3. Sub that in, we have y is equal to 4 over 3x plus c. Now we need to sub in a coordinate. So if we pick maybe 4 and 9, so x is equal to 4, y equals to 9. I'm going to need more space, so I'm going to start, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something quite smart. So we get 9 is equal to 4 over 3. Actually, I'm going to zoom in a bit because that might not be big enough for some of you. Times 4 plus c. So 9 is equal to 16 over 3 plus c. So c is equal to 9 minus 16 over 3. I wasn't sure if this was a calculator or non-calculator. So if we assume it isn't, we need to make the denominators the same, to times the top and bottom by 3. So c is equal to 27 over 3 minus 16 over 3, which is just 11 over 3. So my equation of the line is y is equal to 4 over 3 x plus 11 over 3. But, Mar, did I receive your question? I did, yes. We've got quite a few questions, actually. So may need to leave some for tomorrow. I've done a video on this topic. I have done a video on... Wait, let me double check. Like, actually, maybe not. No, not specifically, actually. No worries, Abby. It says to give it in the form AY plus BX equals C. So what we're going to do is times the whole thing by 3 because it says it wants integers. So that's 3y equals 4x plus 11. Then move the x to the other side, so it's 3y minus 4x equals 11, which is the random form they've asked us to give it in. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, so S, don't forget, like a bunch of people emailed in questions before you sent in yours, so it might take a second. Yeah. Okay. So okay. Yeah. So that's all the questions that were submitted before the lesson. And then there's a few questions that were submitted like literally right now. So I'll do the two that I know were here like first. I'll try and do it in like order, obviously. Okay, so this one is from. Actually, I won't say who it's from, just in case I want to be a. Okay, so. Okay. Perfect. So we have this question from. Okay. So could you choose 5 minus k to work? Okay, you could, Rupal. You're 100% correct. Okay. So it's from Yuzan. Ah, perfect. So it says AC is the diagonal of a kite A, B, C, D. Okay. So I'm assuming this is AC. Yeah, it is. Cool. So I'm going to label that quickly. And the diagonals of the kite intersect at M, which is the midpoint of AC. And we need to work out what's the midpoint of AC. Okay, so they intersect at M, which is there. Okay. The diagonals intersect. AC is a diagonal. Okay. And it says AM is equal to BM, of course. Wait, have I written this wrong? No, I haven't. Okay. AM is equal to BM, and BM to MD is 1 to 2. Work out the possible coordinates for B and D. Okay, yeah, this question kind of threw me off for a second there. So A, B, C, D. So A... Oh, I see. Ah, okay, so they've made this a bit more interesting. Okay. So if we remember what a kite looks like... I mean, hopefully you get the gist there. What they're saying when it's talking about the diagonals intersecting at M, that's actually quite interesting. A, B, C, D. The diagonals intersect at M. So these? So any of these? Right. The wording of this question is throwing me off. 1 second. So this is A, B, C, D, right? And it's saying AC is a diagonal of the kite. That doesn't make much sense. What are the possible coordinates of B and D? Okay. Well, either way, it's very weird wording, unless I'm reading this really wrong. But if we want to find AC by finding Pythagoras, I don't know if they'll... Well, what you're saying makes sense, because essentially the diagonals have to be equal, right? So the diagonals of kites have to be equal. What I'm just confused on is what this means. The diagonals of the kite intersect, like... Unless it's saying it's drawing a line diagonally? Anyways, so the key point here is that these two sides have to be equal, and so do these two sides, right? So since AC is one of the diagonals, the other diagonal must also be 100% the same, right? So if this goes from 1 to 3, then it needs to go from to minus 2. We should have another diagonal here. Can I ask where you got this question from, by the way, Zam? Is it from a past paper? Because the wording's really odd. It's kind of throwing me off, and I don't know why. AQA past paper, really? Okay. M is the midpoint of AC, that's fine. So we can find what the midpoint is. That's just 2, 3. That's okay. AM is equal to BM. So unless what they're saying is the other kite this wording is really messing with me. Because if you have a kite like that, they would intersect at point A, right? BM to MD. Why would they intersect? Can anyone else? Is anyone else seeing this? Like, am I being stupid? Yeah, but what does it mean by the diagonals, right? Like, the diagonal sides, I'm assuming, right? If you draw the kite on the right, it's the same format. I looked up the solution and it's so strange. Could you send me it? Because I'm having a stroke right now. Because the diagonals would be the sides, right? At least that's what I've always thought the diagonals of a kite were. Is it AB is equal to DC? I mean, yeah, I completely agree with that, right? But if you look at what it's saying the diagonals intersect halfway through. But that's not a kite now. Yeah, if you could send me that, right? Is this going to be like the first question I... Okay, the only other thing they could talk about... Ah. Yeah, never mind. I think I see what I'm saying. Okay, so with a kite, the diagonals... Right? The diagonals... I see what it's saying. It means... Okay. These are the diagonals of a kite. They're the lines joining kind of the opposite sides. So that's what it's talking about with AC. So yeah, I was... Okay, that's fine. So this length here is what they've given me. And N is the midpoint. Which is interesting, because if that's the midpoint, then that means that this kite is actually a diamond shape. Okay? So, if we... Okay, this makes more sense now. Okay. So this diagonal, the kite actually is looking like this. Oh no, that's totally fine. Don't worry. I think I get it now. Sorry, that really threw me off for a second there. So that's AC. So then B would be somewhere over here. So this is what our kite looks like. So it's actually more like a diamond shape, right? Or more like a rhombus. Okay? Which is, you know, a bit more... This makes a bit more sense. Okay. BM. So if I say that this is B. Okay. Work out the possible coordinates of it. So. Honestly, Abby, man, I've really got confused for a second there. So yeah. The diagonals are actually the lines joining the opposite sides. That's fine. That's what they mean by that. That's interesting. And the key part is that they are perpendicular to each other. And another thing is that you should know is that the long one forms two kind of isosceles triangles. So BM to MD. So this is 2/3 of this. For it to intersect at the midpoint, the only way for that to be true is if, okay. So A is 1, 1. C is 3, 5. So for them to intersect at the midpoint, hey Bucket, how are you? For them to intersect at the midpoint, you can if you want to, Abby, but I think I know what the hell they're asking now. For them to intersect at the midpoint, we should find what the midpoint is, which is 2, 3, right? But what it also means, so we now know what B is, right? If we look here, it's just going to be 0, 4 for that. And for D, it's going to be 4, 2, I hope. Yes, that's correct, Zam. Yeah. Oh, yes, you're right. My bad. Well done, Rupal. Well spotted. So, yeah, D is actually going to be slightly extended because it says the ratio is 1 to 2, so it should be twice as long. So if the distance between here is, difference between 4 and 1 is 3, then it's going to be twice as much on the other side, it should be 6. So it should be at, sorry, no, it's 0 to 2 even. It should be twice as much on the other side. So instead of going up by 2, it's going to go up by 4. So it's actually going to be at wherever 6 is over here. So that's 6, comma 1. God, what a question. Anyways. It moves to the point R. Okay. So, what I think I'll do is I'll do one more and then I'm going to have to leave the rest for next week. I know, right, Bucket? Jesus Christ. All the questions we've done, grade 9 questions, done all of that stuff, and this is the one that catches me. This is the one that screws me over. Jeez. Yeah. Well, Zam, I don't blame you for getting stuck on that. Okay, so S, I'm going to do your question. You sent it in the Discord, is that correct? And then for the other few questions, if it's okay, we can leave it for next week. You can, so Meadow, send it, and I'll see if I can do it. So you send it in Discord. Okay, cool. So we do this one because Thingy was next. S. Alright, fine. Can I just... Never mind, that's not what I wanted. There we are, finally. Alright. So, on P1 or S1? What, for like A-level maths? Anyways, so here's a sketch of the tan graph. So yeah, cool. And it's translated to give us some point g of x. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Mar, I'll do yours as well then. And maybe we just try and finish them. Okay. AS level maths. I'm hoping to, yeah. So I have got a few more recorded. It's just I haven't uploaded them yet. Okay. And so Q moves to point R, which has coordinates 90 minus 5. Okay. So the first thing you need to do, or you need to think about, is what the coordinates of Q are at the moment. So obviously, the y coordinate is 0, right? Obviously. But what's the x coordinate? Well, these asymptotes start at 90 degrees and then they happen every 180 degrees. So 90 plus 180 will give me 270. And this is another 90, so that's at 360 degrees. Okay? So, we've gone from 360 degrees to 90 degrees. Okay? So in other words, to go from Q to R, yeah, so that's 360. Q to R. I subtract 270 degrees from X. And if you look, I've gone from 0 to minus 5. So I've subtracted 5 from Y. Yeah? So how do I write that in terms of a function? Okay, I'm going to finish the questions that I've sent in as of right now. So that's 3 more questions. And Mar, you promised me it's a short question. So, yeah. We're going to go. There's 3 more questions after this, okay? We'll finish those, then we'll do it, because I feel bad. So, yeah. So the one from Abby, from Mar, and from Red Wrench, okay? Then we're stopping for today. Any questions you send will be done next week, same time, okay? So, how do I write this in terms of a function? Well, if I subtract from this... Very well done, Sarah. And Zam, well done. Right? To subtract 270 from X, you write the opposite thing inside the brackets. Okay? Because remember, if it's inside the brackets, it does the opposite and affects X. Now, to subtract 5 from Y, you just stick a minus 5 outside the brackets. It does what it says on the tin. That would be the answer for this one. So well done, Zam. Well done, Sarah. And now I'm going to do Abby's question because she sent it first. Hoping this is quick. No, I'm joking. It's fine if it's not. And then after this will be Mars and then red wrenches. Okay. Alright. Sorry. Abby. Yeah, Bucket, that's fair enough. Okay, so we have a circle has an equation x squared plus y squared is 5. So don't forget, that's the radius squared. Wait, is that this question? No, it isn't. Okay, yeah. Yes, you can if you want to, Mar. If you want to. So, the actual radius is square root 5. Because don't forget, it equals r squared. So if I were to draw this circle out. Alright. Like that. It would have a radius of root 5. Okay, see you next week's S. This is the point here, which is 4, 3. Okay. Well, best of luck with RE. And we want the gradient of the tangent, okay? See you later, S. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to work out the gradient. We actually don't need the radius, I just realized, by the way. Move, thank you. All we're going to do is work out the gradient of this line here. And because tangents are always perpendicular to the radius, we're going to do the negative reciprocal, okay? So the gradient of the radius equals root 29 over 3 minus 0, because remember it starts off at 0, over 4 over 3 minus 0. So in other words, it's just root 29 over 3 divided by 4 over 3. So it's root 29 over 3 times 3 over 4. Cancel out the 3's and you get root 29 over 4, which means the gradient of the tangent, so I'm going to call that mt, is just minus 4 over square root 29. So my equation, y equals mx plus c, is now minus 4 over root 29, x plus c. Sub in the value for x and y. So root 29 over 3 equals minus 4 over root 29, 4 over 3 plus c. God, this is an ugly thing. Alright. Yeah, this is real ugly, isn't it? Jesus Christ. Alright. Well, I wish I could assume it was non-calculator. So minus. Is this non-calculator by any chance? He asks, hopefully. I don't know, Sarah. I don't know. I think for the sake of everyone's sanity, so this is possible, right? Oh, well, I appreciate it, Abby. I really appreciate it. Calculate. Oh, thank God. Okay. It actually isn't too bad to do by hand, but come on, man. It's like almost 7:30 at night. Let's leave the mental maths for the morning. But yeah, thank God. Okay, fair enough. So it's not too bad, but I just really, have a real urge not to do it. Ugh, yeah. So c is just equal to 15 root 29 over 29. So my final equation, minus 4. This is so hideous. It's unbelievable. You know that. If you wonder why those e's keep appearing, x plus. I saw your question. Give me 1 sec. So how did you get x again? Line 3. Oh, x being 4 over 3? Because the coordinate is 4 over 3 for the x coordinate. Yeah, so it just tells me, yeah. Good question, though. I honestly, I did skip over that a bit. That wasn't the best explanation I've ever had. So you just sub that in, yeah. You sub in the equation, right? Which is why I've got that. It's my bad. Yeah, exactly, Sarah. That's exactly how I do it. Okay. Finally, it is... Well, not finally, sorry. I shouldn't be rude. Okay, so Ma, you sent your thing in the chat. So I'm just going to copy and paste it and pray that this looks somewhat reasonable. Sure, why not, right? Oh, why? Why does it look like that? Alright, fine. Okay, an athlete is going to run 2 laps of a 400-meter athlete's track. Okay. It's a warm-up. They run at an average speed of x. The second lap, they run at an average speed 5 times faster than the first lap. The total time taken for both laps is 320 seconds. Find the value of x, the average speed. Okay. Thank you for this, by the way. Could I go over probability? Maybe one of the other letters. Yeah, see you later, Abby. Thank you very much. Okay, so here's what I would do. Time taken for both laps. Okay. If we have a look at this, right? In the first lap, that's equal to x. And the second lap is equal to 5x, right? No worries, Maya, it's fine. So, if I look at this, this person runs 5 times faster in the second lap than in the first lap, right? So I want you to try and... This might be a bit weird, but that should mean that the person takes 5 times longer to do the first lap, right? Does that make sense? So time taken as a ratio of the first lap to the second lap is going to be 5 to 1. So in other words, perfect. Okay, I'm glad that makes sense. So in other words, the time taken to do whatever lap, let's say the first lap, or the second, doesn't actually make a difference. The time taken to do the first lap is equal to 5/6 of 320. I hope that makes sense. Just to be transparent, I am using a calculator. Oh, really? Wait, is 1/6 any easier? Yeah, of course, why wouldn't it be? Well, that's fun. Alright. Fine. We get 803. Sorry, 800 over 3. Okay. Okay, yeah. So, let me slow down for a second. So, with the speeds, right? You guys are right. It's 1 to 5 for the speed, right? But if you think about it, if I run 5 times faster, then I take 5 times less time, which is why I've swapped around the things, right? The time taken for the first lap should be 5 times bigger for the first one than in the second one, because I'm running 5 times slower. Where did the 5/6 come from? I've changed this ratio into a fraction, right? So 5/6 of the total time is the first lap. Inversely proportional, yeah, exactly. So this is the time, seconds, right? Now, if they want me to work out the speed is just distance over time, right? is distance divide time. What's the distance? The distance is 400 meters. So it's 400 divided by 800 over 3. Mar, was this a calculator question by any chance? So 400 times by 3 over 800. So that's going to be 1200 over 800. We can cancel out the zeros. So that's 12 over 8. So actually I'll write it out fully. 12 over 8, which is equal to... God, what am I trying to divide? I'm dividing it by 4, which is 3 over 2. So in other words, it's 1.5 meters per second. Yes. I'll write out what I divided by each time. Think non-calculator? We did it anyway. Sweet Mary and Joseph, that was fun. That was a good question, actually. I've never seen a question like that before. That's really nice. I like it. Okay. All right. You're very welcome. So, do you do 5 over 6 times 320 because the speed you travel along is how long it takes? Yes. Well, that is a tricky question. It's very problem solving, you know? Very problem solving? Yeah, sure, that's English. By the way, Red Wrench and Meadow. So Red Wrench, your question is actually GCSE and it's technically not part of the spec for normal GCSE. So what I'll do is I will go through it via email, or I'll send you a Google Meet link and I'll go through it with you then, okay? And I'll do the same thing with you, Meadow. So if your questions weren't like part of the specs, what I'll do is I'll invite you to a meet and just quickly go through it, okay? But I'll arrange that with you via email. Because I promised I said I'd do it, but then I realised it's actually not part... Yeah, I realised it wasn't part of the spec, so I feel bad if I say no. Because I did promise. Yes, so the AQA predicts paper at Hannah. I didn't put it on Discord. No, I need to put it on Discord, you're right. I'll put it on Discord and then I'll do a video going through it shortly. But thank you for reminding me. There's so much stuff that I want to do. It's a bit overwhelming. There is a Discord server, Bucket. I'm surprised you're not in it, actually. Let me put it in the chat quickly. Something I can. Actually, yeah, give me 2 seconds. I'll put a link in the chat. When was it sent to me? So I'll put the thing in the chat. I'm actually going to put my personal prediction for the 2023 papers in there. Yeah, so Zam, I'm hoping to do like a video walkthrough by this weekend, but I'm going to put it on the Discord anyway, just in case you guys want to try it. But yeah, I'll do it on YouTube a bit later. It's just that there's so many things that I want to do. It's I think I'm messing up the priorities, to be honest. I'm actually going to change my schedule right now. Right now. And do it. Okay. I've left a note to myself and I want to try and get that done like literally ASAP because that should have been done a bit further. Do I have an Edexcel one? I do, Hannah. I do actually. Yeah. Did they take up topic for last year's maths GCSE? Yes, they either did that or they reduced the grade boundaries. I can't quite remember, Bucket. I can't fully remember. I think there may have been 1 or 2 topics that were taken out.